Howdy, y'all, and welcome to Comic Book Junkies. I'm Andrew,
And I'm Joe.
and this week we're touching on a few different movie projects that are going to be coming up for both DC and Marvel, and we're going to touch on our book of the week, Flashpoint by Geoff Johns and Andy Kubert. So to start off the slate, we're going to talk about John Cena getting a prequel Peacemaker show. Joe, what are your thoughts when you heard the news?
That was something I was actually pretty excited to talk about. Not too much to report because we don't know too much information yet, but HBO ordered an 8-episode TV series on the Peacemaker, and it's supposed to be a spin-off of the Suicide Squad that's supposed to come out later next year. James Gunn is also going to be writing and directing it, at least most of the episodes, so I thought that was pretty cool because he's also directing the Suicide Squad film. I believe it's mostly going to explore his origins, but I love HBO. I love John Cena. I know he's known for his wrestling, so I'm not sure why he's focused on his acting career at this point, but I dig it. Being a DC fan, I'm excited that that's kind of the direction that DC's taking. It's doing a lot of partnerships with HBO, so I think it's a good direction for their cinematic universe. What are your thoughts?
Well, of course, I dig it. Resident John Cena fan. Just like any former wrestler going into acting, as aside from Dave Bautista, I'm all in. I mean, he's trying to follow The Rock's path. Who doesn't love The Rock? Also, Peacemaker is one of those characters that I really do enjoy. We kind of touched on him slightly in our first episode when we were talking Watchmen. He influenced a comedian, and they're kind of going to go with that sort of vibe a little bit. They're going to kind of take a mix of the two. Because, I mean, he's a man who loves peace so much he's willing to fight for it. But they even came out and said he's kind of a douchey Captain America. And it's like, I'm good for that. I love patriotism and I love douchey shit. I think it's hilarious. There's going to be a bunch of corn and cheese and humor. John Cena's no Leonardo DiCaprio or nothing, but I think he's going to be perfect for what the role is asking for. And it's going to be more of like a setup prequel for the Suicide Squad movie, which I'm excited for. I've heard the rumors on that where they're going to have him and, the rest of the squad fighting Starro potentially, like we touched on not too long ago. But I'm definitely excited to see what he does with it. And this might actually make me get HBO Max, as dumb a reason as that is. But like, this is going to be goofy enough for me to buy in.
Did you see the costume, the pictures of him in the costume?
It's dead on, dude. And he's like certified beef tenderloin. He fills out the suit just right. And he's going to be punching dudes in the head and like shooting people left and right. It's going to be badass.
It's going to have a good balance of badassness and goofiness. So I'm pretty excited to move forward with our movie properties. How did you feel about the new casting of Hawkman?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't really know the actor. I've seen some like fan art and stuff. And he also looks certified beef tenderloin. His name's Aldous Hodge. I'm not really sure what else he's really been in, but I think he was in Straight Outta Compton. I think he played MC Ren. Granted, I didn't pay attention to MC Ren in the Straight Outta Compton movie, so I don't really know how good of an actor he really is. But for what they're going for, I mean, it does make sense. Hawkman's like an alien / Egyptian in most of his origins, so I think that having somebody with a darker skin tone, because we all know that's the controversy around it, like, oh, where's my white Hawkman? I'm not going to be the guy who's like poo-pooing it just because it's a black dude cast as Hawkman. I think it'll probably be pretty cool. I'll give him the chance because honestly, any Hawkman's better than no Hawkman. What do you think?
It's official that Hawkman is being played in the new Black Adam movie coming out at the end of 2021. The guy's name is Aldous Hodge. He played in The Invisible Man, so that's kind of a newer movie. He starred in that, and he also played Jim Brown, the football player, in this movie that just came out called One Night in Miami. I think he's capable of doing a great job, although I don't know much about him because his more iconic work is all new. Maybe that means he's building up a good resume. Maybe we'll see a prime performance from him, but it's also something that kind of makes sense, and I'm not going to poo-poo on it either. I think they did a good job with the cast, and very excited to watch not only Black Adam, but Hawkman's appearance in the cinematic universe. So, very last thing I want to touch on before we get into our trade review. A lot of the Marvel movies got postponed to 2021.
Boo! But I mean, who didn't expect that with Big Bad Rona still up in town? So, I mean, no one's packing the movie theaters nowadays. It's not worth it financially for Disney to go ahead and put out these movies and be like, come on, everybody, come see them, because they dump a ton of money into these bad boys. And if they're not getting the returns at the box office, then what's the point? Some people are saying, why don't you just release Black Widow on, digitally like they're doing with Mulan? Like, oh, $30 on top of your Disney Plus account or whatever. If you really want to scrape the bottom of the barrel and try and recoup funds. But if you know you have a certified blockbuster, and I'm sure people will be riding the high of a post-vaccine world or something like that, they're going to go pack the theaters eventually, or they'll do something to figure it out. But I kind of get what they're moving at. Black Widow's been moved back a few times, was supposed to come out this year. That comes out May 2021. I hear Shang-Chi's coming out next July now. The Eternals are coming out next November. So that definitely got pushed back. I mean, I get it. I think the only Marvel property coming out this year is going to be WandaVision, and that's a series on Disney+.
I definitely get them pushing it back, even though I think the drive-in theaters are kind of making a comeback and it's a great alternative. I could see how it's unpopular to, want to release those films considering it's about fall time now, winter's coming up, and then spring. So that doesn't really make for a good atmosphere for drive-in theaters. So pushing their movies back, they could take the Mulan approach. It could work with Black Widow, but ultimately this gives them a chance to kind of adjust anything that they need to and still get a good showing, because people are going to wait to see the movie. People are still going to watch it. So it's probably a pretty good business idea on their part to postpone releasing all their movies.
Agreed. I mean, it's all just kind of a shit show right now just because of the general times right now. I mean, everything's going to hell and burning down left and right. Speaking of shit shows, it's time to get into Flashpoint by Geoff Johns and Andy Kubert, because because we all know that, like, what it turned into. And but let's dig into the story.
So it's a 5-issue event comic. It was published in 2011, right before the New 52, which is when I started collecting comics. So this predates that. First issue is a story based on Barry Allen, the Flash. If you guys aren't familiar with who we identify the Flash with, he's kind of tired from trying to crack a case because he's also some kind of forensic scientist, and he goes full sprint to check out something and kind of wakes up to his mother, and she's been dead for a very, very long time in the DC continuity. So he tells his mom that he's the Flash and that he's a part of the Justice League, and she has no idea what he's talking about. After mentioning Batman, things do click with his mom, but it's not the same Batman that we all know and love.
It's badass Batman. Batman's daddy. And he's just like a straight up dick, but I love it. He's got like the grizzled face. He's got the red eyes. He's got the pointy like shoulder. Like, he's just like edgy, but I dig it. He's way more ruthless. We see him chasing down criminals on like a roof of his Wayne casinos and stuff. And he's pretty much always overlooking like Crime Alley, where, shit went down for him. And it's cool seeing the grizzled Batman. I mean, we've obviously had time to digest this Batman since the story came out in 2011, and Tom King made him even more edgy and sad in his current run, which kind of waters down the impact of OG Thomas. But OG Thomas Wayne is sweet, and he's a total anti-hero. He's ready to kill, and we see Cyborg's ass come up to try and recruit him for his cause. Cyborg's bigger, he's beefier, which I don't really care for. I mean, I know this is kind of like an Elseworld story, is like at the time, but like I like Cyborg, but not on his own. I don't know how you feel about that, but
I thought Cyborg was kind of one of the better characters of this series in particular. Batman's fighting this character named Yo-Yo, which I think is kind of resembles Harley Quinn, and he's dropping her off a building, and if Cyborg didn't come out of nowhere, she would have died. So Cyborg actually saved her life, and thought it was hilarious when Batman said his reaction was that she slipped. But Cyborg is he kind of glues the whole thing together. Basically, what Flashpoint is about is that Aquaman and Wonder Woman are at war, and the Earth could end at any time. And what Cyborg's attempting to do is recruit any type of hero, good or bad or whatever the case is. He's trying to recruit people that would help him in his cause to stop the war between Wonder Woman and Aquaman. But there's a lot of funny scenes that happen too. Pans back to Barry. He's confused because of the world around him. Doesn't know if this is an alternate universe or a different Earth in general, but he's trying to make sense of things. He looks for his wife Iris, who's actually with another guy. So he rushes back to his mom, and she owns her own car, and he's powerless at this point. So he asks,
Mom, I'm getting cucked.
That's exactly what happens. He asks her if she has a car, and she's like, yeah. And he's like, can I borrow it? And so somebody with superpowers is borrowing his mom's car, goes back to Batman with Cyborg, and Cyborg explains that millions have died because of this war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and he's just trying to stop the whole thing, trying to make his dad proud at the end of the day. So I thought that was kind of noble, but that's all I got on Cyborg.
What I do like about Cyborg is that his home base is in Detroit. So I'm like, hell yeah, dude, represent. He's chilling at the Star Labs. So I love that. And he's got like a little Made in America logo on him, I think. And I'm just like, hell yeah, dude, God bless. So
God bless.
yeah, so Cyborg's killing it. What I do also like is that we see the Shazam family, the Shazamily. This is kind of a rough, touchy subject for me as our resident Shazam fan, but his powers are split between his new foster family. This is where they were introduced, and they collectively turn into Captain Thunder when they all say the word. So the Captain Thunder thing's kind of like a tidbit to back when he was originally kind of introduced, you know, in like the DC continuity, stuff like that. It's like edgy Captain Thunder with edgy Talkie Tawny, who's a full-on like He-Man's giant cat thing, which I can't recall the name of. But it's just like, why is he wearing armor and he's a giant tiger and yada yada, which, I mean, this is an Elseworld story in a way. It's not on main continuity, but it is. So it's like they took their liberties and took their shots there. That I get they want to modernize the family. But what I do like is, even though, because I like the Shazam family now, Darla, Eugene, Pedro, I'm cool with them. They've grown on me. But the one thing I do hate now, as opposed to even in this story, Freddy still had black hair, and they changed him to a long-haired blonde as Captain Marvel Jr. in the new stories, and it grinds my gears. I'm like, don't do that. Just change it back, and you can keep the rest, and I won't complain. But that's besides the point. But I really do also like the interaction between the Shazam family. I kind of like their interaction then more than Geoff Johns' most recent run, so I don't know what he's doing there. Kind of stepping back a tiny bit, how about that like hodgepodge group of heroes that Cyborg's trying to recruit in the first place? Like, those dudes couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag, and he's trying to get them to go stop Wonder Woman and Aquaman over in Europe. It's like, dude, you're already screwed. Just fucking forget about it. It's like,
it is a pretty poor group of heroes or villains or whatever, anti-heroes, whatever you want to call it. Moreover, the attempt was to bring Batman in. If he can recruit all these people, maybe Batman might join him, but Batman gives him a hard no.
Yeah, which I respect, because I mean, if I'm in Batman's boots and I'm looking at this fucking like group of people like staring back at me that are supposed to help me, a human man, and they're supposed to have superpowers, and these guys have like, what powers do they have? One guy looked like my ball sack dipped in water, and then the other people, it's like, who are you? It's like, I've never even seen you before. It's like, come on, this guy's wearing like a mask like he's a robber. I'm blackout. What do? You turn off light bulbs, clap on. But okay, you suck, dude. Get these guys out of here. You didn't have one person that could help you. Like, your best bet is a ragtag group of foster kids and their pet tiger. Yeah, it's like, come on. You're literally counting on children and a bunch of schmucks outside of the 7-Eleven. Like, come on.
Definitely got the recruits from 7-Eleven. And that finally pisses off Flash enough to go visit the Batcave. And nobody's there, apparently, except for the items in the Batcave. And he's kind of looking on what's on display, and there's a picture of Bruce with his parents, and there's the gun on display that killed both of Bruce's parents. And so he knows he's in the right place, but Batman comes out of nowhere and gives him a quick little ass whooping at the end of this issue. Barry keeps yelling for Bruce to stop, and all of a sudden everything comes together because Thomas is kind of confused why he's calling Bruce. So you figure out that Batman is Thomas Wayne in this world and not Bruce. So in this universe, which is actually the same universe, it's Bruce that died and not Thomas, his dad. And so Thomas inevitably takes up the Batman mantle. So that's kind of how they end this issue, which is a pretty cool way to end the issue and a pretty cool way to start issue 2.
You know what I really like is, it's a short scene, but it was everything I needed, kind of. Pirate Deathstroke kicking ass, just sailing the seas, just zapping, what was it, Aqualad or whatever down there. It's like, that was cool. And then they're like, what's going on? They see a crew like dead in the water, and they're like, what happened to them? They drove too far inland. And he's like, oh shit, so did we. And then Aquadick jumps on board with Ocean Master, and he just murders the whole squad, which I was like, damn, like, Aquaman really is a big old dick. All because he used to date Wonder Woman, and then Mara like tried to like assassinate her. Like, is that the whole point of this? Is because he's pulling too many hoes? I don't know if that's like the whole problem for this, but I like that little scene there, just kind of random in a way, but it kind of set up like the stakes. Like, wow, Aquaman really is evil. I guess I wouldn't want to deal with an evil Aquaman either, considering he's like sinking countries, but it makes him more badass to know it's the guy who talks to fish. But to get back into like the main part of the story, Barry's kind of realizing that the timeline is in fact real and that Reverse Flash is the one toying with him, because he's kind of in the Batcave and he's got his ring, but it shoots out a Reverse Flash suit, which is hilarious because Reverse Flash is always just being a dick as much as he can to Barry, and he's just doing like little gags here and there just to be like, I know that you know that I did this, but I want you to know it and you can't do anything. And so pretty much the whole big chunk of the story is Flash definitely tries to convince Thomas into recreating the accident by dousing himself in chemicals, going to a roof, and strapping himself to an electric chair till he gets zapped. And he gets what he wants, but then he looks like a burnt wiener, and he's like mummified in the Batcave. It's just like, no, I have to do this or I'm going to forget everything. And Thomas is like, but don't forget Bruce. And he's like, bro, I'm trying to forget nothing. So yeah, I want to remember Bruce too. And he's like, but Bruce. And he's like, well, I want to go get zapped again. And Thomas is like, you're nuts. He's like, yeah, but it works, dude. And that's what's the most badass.
It's fucking hilarious because at first Thomas Wayne as Batman gives Barry Allen a good ass whooping because Barry Allen has no powers. No. And then after that ass whooping, he's still determined to strap himself to a chair and get shot by lightning, hoping he can recreate his powers. So he puts a bunch of chemicals next to his chair, hoping it will turn him into the Flash, and he gets burnt like a like a hot dog. And he still doesn't get his powers back at the end of this issue. Completely fucking burnt. And so Thomas Wayne has to bring him to like a hospital chair and tell him to like recover before issue 3 because his plan to become the Flash again does not work.
No, but it's so cool. I do like the part after that though, where we find a badass Lois Lane just like hanging around. She's kind of like deep in the trenches and she's looking for the Resistance. And Jesus Christ, could you be any more disappointed with the goddamn Resistance? The only cool guy was the Demon because hell yeah, he rules. But they have the Grifter and the motherfucking Canterbury Cricket. And I'm like, God damn it, dude. Like, you'd be better off finding like a homeless guy and giving him a chainsaw instead of the Canterbury Cricket. There aren't even crickets in England. But it's like, why did you make this character? It's like, there's no point. But it's like literally the whole squad sucks, and except Demon because he rules, like I said. But we go back to the Batman storyline because we got like that little payoff of seeing the Resistance, which I said sucked. They can't do shit. But Batman is down in the cave and he's like, Flash, he's like, you can't borrow my clothes. He's like, you can't have any. You gotta stay wrapped in the mummy bandages. And he says, here, you can take this one instead. And he hands him the Reverse Flash suit. And Barry looks at him and like, are you serious? And he's like, well, isn't it like friction proof? And he's like, I don't like that.
So he finally goes one more time to shock himself to death. And at the end of this issue, it finally pays off because him getting zapped after he's already burnt to a crisp turns him into the Flash for whatever reason.
Second time's a charm. But yeah, I like how this Batman's different too, because once Barry's kind of back up to speed, he's in his suit and he's kind of ready to get shit done. Unlike Bruce, who has like a supercomputer and stuff like that, Flash comes over to look for Batman's computer and it's like a tiny little desktop. And I just thought that was hilarious. I was like, so this Batman has no interest in technology. He's literally just out there beating ass for no reason. And it's kind of proven too when Flash is like, did you ever care, like later on in the story? Like, and he's like, you don't have a response for that. And Thomas didn't give a shit about anything other than beating people up because he was sad. That's hilarious to me because it's just like, this guy has no purpose other than to beat people up. And it's kind of cool because superheroes, but it's goofy as all hell.
Yeah, he wasn't really like a true hero in this. Even though Bruce Wayne has his questionable moments, Thomas Wayne was kind of like a true anti-hero. But it is at this point that Thomas is kind of convinced that Flash is telling the truth and he's not just some kind of homeless weirdo. And so they convince Cyborg that Batman's kind of ready to join the gang. And so they set out to see if they can recruit more people to fight in the war. And so they look for Superman, the most important member of the Justice League. There's no Superman of this story yet, but once Batman starts questioning Cyborg about it, Cyborg does a little research and finds out that there was something hidden by the government that they're going to check out. It's at this point that we start seeing them try to recruit Hal Jordan and Superman to their cause because they know that they're not going to be strong enough to fight Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and the Reverse Flash. And that kind of leads into issue 4.
I like that through the plot of trying to rescue Superman. They don't really have too much trouble really getting in there or doing really much of anything, but just the payoff of finding Superman and then seeing he's a damn pale string bean who hasn't seen sunlight ever. And they spring him from jail and they're like, yeah, we got Superman. We're in good shape. They start getting shot at. Superman just like zaps one guy and then he gets all soft and just like floats away. And Barry's like, he'll come back. Superman just straight up dipped. He's like, he's so useless, dude. He looks like malnourished and shit. He couldn't help no one, dude.
Bro, he looks like fucking Slender Man in the beginning of this. He hasn't had any interaction with people, no substance whatsoever, so he's frail as hell. And they're like, this is what you made us find. Thomas is pissed at this point because he's just like, that's the Superman that we're talking about. Dude can't do shit. And as soon as he sees some sunlight, he's gone. He doesn't care about nobody else. He just, he's in and out.
It was so kind of dumb, but like hilarious. They really have no hope in this universe. And I feel like that really prefaces, the next several years of comic books that they were going to publish. I think they were very on brand with that. But I guess there's a bunch of smaller Easter eggs and stuff like that that I did like that Geoff Johns kind of wove throughout the story. Fawcett City was still a place, which in modern continuity, like post-Rebirth era, was replaced by Philadelphia. So that sucks. I mean, Fawcett City was cool, which is where, the Shazam family's living. I like that Hal is still a baller. Barry laughs that he's still not married to Carol. I think that's cool because he's still joking about his buddy even in dire times. But like Hal is a hotshot pilot still, didn't crash, nothing shitty happened to him yet. He's about to go drop pretty much a nuke on Aquaman and Wonder Woman, which is called the Green Arrow from Queen Industries, which I thought that was really cool, which is funny because Green Arrow is kind of more of like a social justice kind of guy, like, almost like a Robin Hood type character, but instead he's like financing a giant like nuke type bomb and then he's shipping it over to the UK to go get dropped. So I thought that was kind of cool, but like random. So that was pretty sweet. Barry starts losing more and more of his memory, starts bleeding into more of that new 52 horse pucky we were going to have to endure. So that sucks. Billy is sitting on the couch. They're kind of debating if they want to come join Batman and the Flash and everybody. And Billy's kind of always been the OG. He is Shazam and then the rest kind of just got added because of how sweet he was. But he's the only one with balls and like morals. And we both appreciate balls and morals. And everybody else is sitting around like, oh, can we just get pizza, Billy? And Pedro's chunky butt's just like, I don't want to do it. I just want pizza. And Freddy's like, I'm scared. And it's just like, Billy's like, come on, guys. We got to like boss up. We're Captain Thunder. He's like, if we don't do this now, there's no pizza next week because there's nothing next week. And it's like,
yeah, that was one of the best lines in the whole series. He says, every Friday night we order pizza and we watch a movie with Mr. and Mrs. Beck, which is a cool
shouts out CC Beck.
But it's only the time that we act like a family. Family isn't about blood. Family is about bond. And just like pizza night. And so he kind of convinces all of the people that make him Captain Thunder at this point that they need to fight in this war. And even though they're kids and they almost died last time they fought Wonder Woman, it's important that they get involved somehow.
Yeah, dude, war is pizza. But I'm all in on that. I think it was definitely a good way to rally the troops. And I think when you have Batman and Shazam / Captain Thunder on your side, shriveled nut guy and like brown paper bag guy are going to come join too. And, we're all going to fight and rally. Yeah. But I really also think at this part of the story is when a lot of the cool character moments really started happening. Barry and them, they're rallying the troops. Batman's still saying like, no, he's kind of like, what's the point at this point? He's like, everything's kind of going to shit anyways. But Flash stands there and he's like, Bruce would have come. And it's just hook, line, and sinker, dog. Thomas got real soft in that instant. He's like, fine, I'm coming. Because he ain't getting showed up by his dead son. Because apparently that's the only thing he cares about. And that's kind of justifiable. Kind of prefaced it earlier, but we find out that Aquaman and Wonder Woman used to shag, and she killed his woman, and everyone's all mad. Kind of why they're beefing, and that's why they're bringing Europe into it.
Takes this long in the series, but you finally find out that Wonder Woman and Aquaman, the only reason they're having war is because they used to fuck, and then Aquaman was married, and so his wife finds out, and Wonder Woman claims that it was in self-defense, but kills Aquaman's wife and then wears her helmet. And so he's kind of pissed off at this point. He's just like, what are you doing? And the last page, Shazam decides to fight. He starts attacking Wonder Woman, and at this point you find out who's the main villain of the story. Reverse Flash comes and gives Flash the old 1-2.
Yeah, dude. And also we find out who the traitor is that they mentioned in the story, which is the Enchantress, who's a total traitor ass, and she split up Shazam and got Billy murdered, which pisses me off. Big Billy guy here, he gets stabbed with a sword. That's not cool. You killed a child, but because he has all that magic energy in him, he like blew everybody to smithereens, dude, which was kind of cool. But that pisses me off that they have to kill Billy, who's clearly a child. But we see that Reverse Flash comes to gloat and just be a total dick, which I love, because no matter what, he's always just kind of being a smart ass, first and foremost.
Flash is questioning. He's just like, you're the villain of the story. And Reverse Flash is like, no, you're actually the villain of the story. So the reason this whole thing happened, and you don't find out until the very last issue, is because in that moment at the very beginning of the series where Barry's kind of pissed off at his office desk, he actually goes to rescue his mother. He runs so fast that he travels back in time where his mother's getting murdered by the Reverse Flash. And so he tries to save her, but that's kind of like a crack in a windshield. It's got a ripple effect across all of the DC continuity. And so that's the reason that this world gets created. It's a real future for him. And in attempting to save his mother, he creates this whole mess from the beginning. And he's experiencing it all at this point. So the Reverse Flash does a really good job of making the Flash feel like the real villain of the story.
Yeah, dude, he always just tries to make him feel like a piece of shit. And it's bad because, I mean, nobody should idolize this guy, but he's like pure comedy. And he's just like, you happy with what you did, Barry? He's like, you caused this. And then he's just like, guess what, Barry? It was me. I killed your mom. You remember that one time in grade school when you were peeing at the urinal and your pants got pulled up? It was me, Barry. It's just like every bad thing. He's like, remember when you were eating soup, but you had a fork? It was me, Barry. It's just like, no matter what, he's just like, I hate you. He's like the Black Manta to Barry's Aquaman. It's pure spite and just anger. And like, he idolizes him and wouldn't exist without Barry, but because of Barry's shenanigans, now Reverse Flash is a living paradox and he's freed from the shackles of time. So no matter what, he has the upper hand on Barry. He can't die. He's always in the time stream. He can go and kill Barry as a child, he says. He can kill Barry when he's old. He can do whatever he wants and pretty much torture Barry. He's like, I don't have a need for you anymore. And Batman comes up from behind and he says, don't stand still in a fight, pretty much. Stabs him right through the heart. Reverse Flash is dead. But as we come to learn in Rebirth, Reverse Flash is never dead. But it's sweet. The Resistance still sucks. Superman does come back, and still nothing good really happens. Batman's dying. He's giving a letter to Flash to give to Bruce, and he's just like, bro, you just gotta run like hell and just fix this shit. He's like, this is already toast. Just run, Barry. Which, of course, Barry always does do. And he does. He catches his old self in the act, which is definitely risky because he's not supposed to be running through time without the cosmic treadmill, merges with his old self, stops himself from causing this whole tub of shit. But we find out, because DC Editorial and Dan Didio are evil, that guess what? There are still splinter effects. So while he's running through the time stream, we see who is not yet mentioned yet, but Pandora mentioning the 3 splits into the time stream, which is like Wildstorm and DC and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? And pretty much everything looks normal. Barry wakes up at his desk. He's going to talk to Batman, who's Bruce again. He's like, Bruce, it is Bruce, right? And he's like, duh, Barry, who the hell else would it be? And he's like, okay, never mind. And he gives him the letter. We see Batman crying grown man tears, and he's like, you're a hell of a messenger, which I thought was a nice touching moment, because you don't see Batman being vulnerable. And I mean, Tom King tried to do that way too much, but I really like how Geoff Johns wrote him. It felt kind of natural for Batman to kind of feel that way, because I mean, literally he lives for his dad, and like, it wasn't like a constant trope at the time.
To your point, that is kind of the reason he does the things that he does. And so you do see that at the end when he gets the letter from his dad. And Flash really is a good messenger. And I thought that was a good conclusion to Flashpoint. It made it kind of like an emotional story. Part of it, Flash trying to save his mother. And then the other part where you see Batman cry because he knows that Thomas Wayne, if all things were said and done, would have stepped up to his position because he cares. That being said, what would you rate it?
I'm going a firm 5.5 out of 10 because Canterbury Cricket and because of New 52. How about you?
Damn. I'm going to go 7 out of 10, which has been my lowest so far, even though I think Crisis probably could have got a 7 out of 10. I like the bulk of the story because it focuses on the Flash. If we learned anything about Crisis, Flash is so crucial to the timeline of DC continuity. So this was a story that expanded on that. He's trying to save his mother, but he doesn't realize what kind of effect that has on history and how much power it gave the Reverse Flash. So that was cool. I thought the story was pretty good. And for how modern the art felt, that was one of the stronger points of the story as well. One of the better things to come out of Flashpoint was Thomas Wayne. So I did like that. His adaptation of Batman. Geoff Johns is always a pretty good story writer. So anything he writes, CBJ approves. But I like the way that they're able to fit so much content into just a few issues. The story takes place only over 5 issues in 2011, and it feels like it could have been expanded on way longer, but in a sense, it also doesn't feel so overwhelming too. So they did a good job in that regard. The only thing I didn't like was the fight between Aquaman and Wonder Woman. It didn't really make sense in this series. In the animated series, they explain it a little better. So props to them. If you're interested in reading this, I may skip straight to the movie because it's a pretty faithful adaptation. So you get everything you do out of the comics, except you get a little bit of the background story too, because this is an event comic. There's a lot of side plots that go on, and you kind of get a little bit of that in the movie. So I might recommend the movie over the comic book, but it's still cool to see where the source material comes from.
I'm probably just being harsh on it due to kind of the context of me understanding the story now. I agree with you on the animated movie. I would definitely recommend that over the book if I was a more casual fan, or maybe you haven't read the story yet. I think it's, like you said, it's very faithful, and I think it's probably a little bit more dynamic in parts. So I would definitely recommend watching that. But I think that I just hate it a little bit more than I should because I love Geoff Johns. I love the art. I love Reverse Flash. Canterbury Cricket is hilarious, objectively. But, just kind of like the dumb stuff here and there. I really do love the Flash, and I like Geoff Johns' take on the Flash. I think I just have ill will towards the story, which isn't a bad story, just because I don't like some of the characters involved. Like pretty much anybody who's not the Flash, Thomas Wayne, or Shazam, I'm kind of like because it's got that New 52 flavor in it, and I think I just have a bad taste in my mouth just from my experience with that, because I think the New 52 kind of ruined the potential of this almost. I feel like Geoff Johns was in with editorial on where this would go, but I feel like at the same time, the way that we saw it end with normal Batman, and they already had like a rapport, and Barry's Barry, the characterization's normal, things looked kind of normal, but then they went and did all the weird continuity stuff. And I know I can't be a continuity guy. I wasn't even in on New 52 when it started. Joe he was there for release. I kind of got in 2013, so a couple years later. But even from what I saw then, and I was wet behind the ears in comics, it just didn't jive right. There was a lot of crap just being pushed out, and I get that you want to reinvent it for a modern fan base and readers and whatnot, but this is like a self-eating industry, and I don't think if people aren't already reading to a certain degree, that what you're putting out isn't necessarily going to pull them in.
Yeah, the New 52 was kind of an attempt for DC to revamp their brand by relaunching its entire line of comic books, even starting back to Action Comics and Detective Comics, which reset itself back to issue 1. And that was kind of like a jump on for new readers, but at the same time, it wasn't, because like you said, they didn't do a very good job with it. The New 52 was the start of my collecting career, so they did have some good titles, most notably Zack Snyder and Greg Capullo's run on Batman. That was kind of cool. There was a good Animal Man series, and Jonah Hex was all right. Moving forward, it was a terrible idea for the company as it proved unsuccessful. So now they undone everything that happened in the New 52 and have created another event called Rebirth in 2016. And all the titles from that event are still ongoing so far, but coincidentally, Rebirth happened when the titles were a New 52 were nearing the 52nd issue. That made for a kind of convenient alibi for them to try something different. Maybe, too much foreshadowing, but although that led for the downfall of DC, Flashpoint had great standalone value, which is part of the reason why we decided to review this event in the first place.
Definitely. And with it being such an important piece of DC history, for better or for worse, it definitely is something you should read if you're a big DC fan, just so you have the knowledge of it. I'm sure there's other DC stories that we need to go back and read as well, but that's the fun of this podcast. We'll eventually get through all of them one day. For now, I think we've said what we need to say, so we definitely want to thank you all, and we would invite you to like, subscribe, tell your friends if you like it. Go to Apple Podcasts, give us a review, give us 5 stars if you would, please. We would certainly appreciate it. Helps the algorithm find us and helps us find more comic book junkies to talk to. And you can follow us on social media. We have Facebook at CBJ Podcast. You can find us by Comic Book Junkies. We're on Instagram at CBJ Pod. Definitely find us on there. Come talk to us. Let us know what you like, what you don't. And yeah, we have a YouTube page as well in case you like audio files on there if you're not a traditional podcast listener. Catch us next time where we will be reading the Galactus trilogy that takes place in Fantastic Four 48 through 50.
If you like the Fantastic Four and one of their most iconic runs in Marvel, we'll catch you next episode. Have a good night, guys.
Later, guys.